is it going, everybody? Welcome to the Paws Up preview. Now, I know what you're saying, wonderful viewer, that the football season is over for FIU, and you'd be correct. However, now we're transitioning over to basketball coverage, and oh my gosh, Kevin, we have the biggest, I'd argue the biggest game of the season coming up, the only nationally televised game as well. It's FIU versus FAU at the Ocean Bank Convocation Center. Kevin, how hyped are you for this game, man?
I'm pumped. I didn't go to the first one I ever did, the last one, so that would have been my senior year of high school. I think you were there though, Jake. I was not. The second deck was open. They're opening it again, so expect a sellout at the Ocean Bank, which we haven't seen in a very long time.
Yes.
I'm very excited for this. I'm very excited. Obviously, FAU, huge rival, hoping to take them down this year. They don't look like they did last time. So just for reference, these were some of their top scorers last year. John L. Davis, he's now at Arkansas. Golden Vladislav, he's at Michigan. Elijah Martin, UF. Nick Boyd, not with the team anymore. So it's a very new team, new coach. I think they have a chance to win. We'll talk about it. And yeah, man, just excited to be back doing some sort of a preview. I think this one merited a preview. So I'm glad we're getting it done.
It did. Our first preview was obviously for the season opener against Rice, but that was more of like just a season preview more than it was specifically just for that game. Kevin, I just think it's fun to take a break from all this football drama going on in the world of FIU, talking about something different, some hoops. And it's a big game, needless to say. Be sure to pack the bank. It is, I believe, a 6:30 tip-off between FIU and FAU. But let's talk about the FIU Panthers here. Not a great start to the season, Kevin. It's unfortunate. They have been in some really close games. They've been in some very winnable games that they just haven't been able to come out on top on, including their most recent loss, which was to FGCU by a final score of 60-59. That capped off a Fort Myers Invitational for them. It's just been a very difficult season for FIU. They're just not – it reminds me of FIU football. A lot of not so much one score, but very manageable wins that they just have not come out with.
Yeah, a lot of close games, and you look at that Fort Myers tournament over there at FGCU. Just going to pull up the numbers here. I mean, look, first game they lost by 2. The second one they won by 3 in overtime. Then they lost by 1. You look at Howard, you lost by 5. And then you look at Southern Utah, lost by 5. And then you lost by 7 to Rice. I mean, they've all been losing under 10 points. So you feel like at some point those games are that momentum's kind of going to shift towards your end. Hopefully that's the case. Unfortunately, it hasn't been. FIU's also struggled a lot in some certain areas, shooting the ball from beyond the arc specifically. Yes. On the free throw line, they've had a lot of foul trouble. That's kind of been managed a little better recently, especially in the Fort Myers tournament. But, you were expecting a big season from someone like a Deshaun Gittins, who hasn't been bad per se, but just hasn't been great. He's currently averaging he is averaging 8.6 points per game. He's been struggling for sure. At least to begin the season, he did. I mean, look, started the season off with an 18-point game against FGCU. Then you go 5 points, 6 points, 4 points against Howard and Northeastern, and then you get the big game against Cal Bakersfield, which is a big one. That was the game that he took to overtime, and then he won it in overtime. Then FGCU was 7 points. So he's really struggled. That's a guy who I thought this team was going to lean on a lot this season, and just hasn't been the case. He took all 3 game winners at the FGCU tournament. So that's definitely been interesting. And then some underwhelming guys on the team thus far, like a Nassim Jones has really been very underwhelming. I expected a little bit more from an OKK who's a returner. Unfortunately, Jaden Lipscomb just not with the team right now, so that's a big loss, at least from beyond the arc. So a lot has gone right for this team, to be honest with you as well. Look, Ashton Williamson, freshman guard, he's been super fun to watch, very fun. Jaden Brewer is having himself a career season at the moment. He's putting up some points for sure. He's putting up, I think he leads the team in points per game. 14.4 points per game. Jonathan Abar, looking a lot better. He's put up, 10 points per game, more or less, so it's pretty respectable. But again, I think the one thing that killed FIU, especially in the tournament, at least the back half, was a lot of the rebounding. They haven't been able to rebound the ball, at least on the defensive side of it. They're actually dominating the board pretty well on the offensive side of the ball. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. But yeah, you said it, one score game, not even one score. It's just like so close. Every game has been close.
Yeah. It,
FNU won. Every game's been close, and they've had a chance.
if it wasn't for that clutch buzzer beater by Gittins against Cal State, you're looking at only one single win for FIU this season. It was obviously that blowout to Florida National. Now, there is one player that I've been very impressed with so far this season that's pretty much taken up the mantle. It's obviously hard to replace a player like Arturo Dean, right? But I think the player that's doing his best to sort of solidify himself in that similar role has been Jaden Brewer, who leads FIU in both points per game and rebounds per game, 14.4 and 5.6 respectively. He's just been a very reliable player for this FIU squad. He's good at starting runs. He's good at finishing drives. He's good at pretty much anything scoring wise, and he's been I think the heartbeat of this FIU squad, all things considered.
Yeah, it's been really fun to watch. He's very athletic too. You may see how skinny he is, but he can fly, man. He is fast, and he's been fun to watch. So definitely someone who's really stood out. He had a great camp. He's someone who I'd been hearing about just how good he had been, how much he's improved. He entered the transfer portal and decided to come back to FIU. I don't know what will happen after this season. It's still very early to tell, of course, but he's been a fun watch for sure, and I'm sure we'll talk to him prior to the game on Wednesday.
Yeah. Defensively for FIU, I've been very impressed, Kevin, with Vianney and what he's been able to do swatting the ball away. He is such a good blocker, leads the team. He's averaging 1.6 blocks per game. I was wondering who'd take that defensive stand for this FIU squad. In seasons past, they haven't really had much in the way of height on this squad. But now you bring in 6'11" Vianney, and then so far this season, Kevin, I think looked pretty good.
Yeah, he's third in the conference in blocks, actually. So he has 11 blocks, tied for third with a couple other guys. So he's been definitely fun. Rebounding wise, he could definitely do a little bit better, I would say.
Yeah,
he hasn't been great. This is a conference that really does struggle to rebound the ball, to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. But I mean, look, it's bound to happen. He's a big guy. He's also been able to kind of get into that starting five right away and make an impact. So that's been fun to watch as well. So really, he's been a fun watch. Definitely struggled a little bit early on, especially in that first game against Rice, fouling out only 8 minutes in. Then he had a couple good games against Southern Utah. He had the game against Florida National. Then struggled against Howard, and then had a good game against Northeastern, and then a nice little game against Kyle Bakersfield, and struggled against FGC. So it's been a lot of inconsistencies for Vianney Salachum. That's how you say it.
There you
go. Yeah, I think he just needs to find a rhythm, and he should be pretty much good to go. Just, 10-point per game scorer. Never hate to see that. Leading the team in rebounds is something I think he should definitely look to do, because as you mentioned right now, I mean, Jaden Brewer is leading your team in rebounds. Not exactly what you want.
Yeah.
Vianney's number 2 with 4.1 rebounds per game. So definitely a guy who I've been impressed by a decent amount. He's shown some flashes that he could be a fun guy. Mm-hmm. He's only a junior. He has another year after this. So we'll see what happens with him.
Talk a bit about Asim Jones, Kevin. Asim did not have the best start to the season. His coming out party was against Howard, and in that game he impressed. And I think he's been steadily getting better as the season has gone by. Talk about the expectations that you still have with Asim.
Yeah, I've been really disappointed so far, but you mentioned it. I mean, he had a nice little game against Howard, and then he had a good game against Cal State Bakersfield. He went 6 for 6 from the free throw line, something I feels like FIU's just struggled to do. Mm-hmm. He's been able to he's actually been pretty good in terms of facilitating the ball. 4 assists against Southern Utah and Florida National. Then he had the 3 assists against Northeastern, 2 against Cal State Bakersfield, 1 against Florida Gulf Coast. So he's definitely improved a little bit. He's not going to be a crazy player, just like from what I've seen right away. Nothing too crazy, but I feel like he's definitely someone who should be putting up a little bit more points per game. Mm-hmm. He was like, they thought this guy was a replacement for Arturo. So we'll see what happens with him. And he was putting up about 13, 15 points per game at the JUCO level.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're not expecting him to do the same exact thing, but something close to that. And it's been a little disappointing for sure. Like if you had to tell me who's been the most disappointing guy, it's definitely been a Sim Jones, just because when I went to the season, I was expecting this guy to be the star. Not the star, but close enough. It was going to be him and Deshaun Gittins as the main two, with Brewer being that nice complementary three, and just hasn't been the case.
Talk a bit about some other players on this FIU squad you feel have either underachieved or overachieved so far this season. I mean, I like what I've seen so far from A-Bar. Aside from Brewer, he's the only other Panther giving you double-digit points per game, at least at this very moment. He has 10.2. Ashton has looked really good. He leads the team in assists with 3.3, and this is a team that does, I think, produce turnovers very, very well. A Sim does lead in that stat, 1.9 steals per game.
Yeah, Sim has been definitely the guy who I have enjoyed watching. He's 12th in the conference in assists per game. He doesn't have the most assists, though. Definitely doesn't, but he's probably close. Yeah, he's 12th in that category as well.
Yeah.
He's definitely been fun to watch, nonetheless. He kind of does a little bit of everything. He's a pretty decent shooter. I think that's something that's going to improve early on. It's definitely not been great for the whole team, honestly. And look, I mean, we look at team stats right now, three-point percentage, FIU's got to be at the bottom, if not very close to the bottom. They're like fifth, which is impressive, to be honest with you. Fifth lowest.
Yeah.
So it is interesting to see that three-point percentage. All right, here we go. Yeah, FIU's the lowest. Worst three-point percentage in the conference. So it hasn't been great. But I think overall that's something that everyone needs to improve on, especially someone like an Ashton. Ashton facilitates very well. He knows what's going on. It's like you're watching a veteran guard play with the body of a freshman, and that's what Ashton's been able to do so far. And he's definitely been a good pickup for Jeremy Ballard and the staff.
And again, a trait of this FIU squad I do like, kind of like what they were good at last season, forcing turnovers, making other teams play sloppy. They're 38th in the country in turnovers forced. Funnily enough, they're taking on an FAU squad that's 45th in the country in that category. But defensively, I think they've looked good at times. However, they have allowed a lot of scoring runs by opposing offenses, and that leads to some of these super close losses where, including that season opener against Rice, the Owls got hot at the right time in that game, and when FIU needed to make a play or just get some points to stay in it, they start to get cold. And that happened in the season opener, and that's happened a few times this season so far.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's move on to the our opponent. It is the FAU Owls. Now, Kevin, these are not the same FAU Owls that made that Final Four appearance a few years ago. That they have that cool banner in their barn afterwards. They're 4-5 so far this season. Funnily enough, they're still first in the American Athletic Conference, even with a record like that. And I think it starts with their head coach. It's no longer Dusty May. He went to Michigan, I believe, Kevin. Now you bring in a new guy in John Jacobs, and overall it looks like there's been a slight culture change there. They're looking to maintain the success they had when they made it to the Final Four. It hasn't worked out for them so far.
Yeah, they've been similar to FIU. They've been in a lot of close games. I mean, you look at that last game against FGCU. They literally lost on a buzzer beater. Couldn't have been any worse. 4-5. You said it. I mean, look, they lost just by 6 points to UCF. They lost to Charleston by 3 in overtime. They lost to Drake pretty badly, actually, and then they lost to Seton Hall by 2. So similar to FIU, they've been in a lot of close games, but have been really good opponents. I mean, look, UCF is no joke. They're really good. Oklahoma State, or they beat Arturo Dean, actually, funny enough, at Oklahoma State. So that's been a pretty fun. That was good to see. That's probably their best win of the season right now. Drake, I don't think anyone saw Drake doing what they're doing right now. I'm pretty sure.
Beat Miami too. They beat UM as well.
Drake's been fun to watch. So I think definitely looking at a very different team from what we saw last season. Leading the way has been Caleb Glenn, a forward that came from Louisville. I believe that's where he came from, Louisville. Louisville transfer. Then you have Leland Walker, an Indianapolis guy. So same. And then I think this is a guy who every FIU fan is way too familiar with, Kiki Tandy, transfer out of Jacksonville State. If you guys remember, Kiki Tandy torched FIU the first time that FIU took him on in conference play. And then FIU shut him down in the conference tournament. So I'm interested to see what they're going to do Kiki Tandy, though, has been pretty damn good. Just 10 points per game and so far. Rebounding wise, 1.8 rebounds per game. And he's been able to facilitate the ball pretty well, too. He has 8 assists, but he's a scorer, man. He's a scorer. He's a fast player. He's definitely going to be a tough guy to guard. So that's something I'm definitely keeping an eye out on. FAU is also pretty good nationally. So one stat I looked at, Jake, is just how fast these teams are tempo-wise.
Right.
This is going to be a fast game, man. FIU is 44th in the nation in fast break points, while FAU is 38th. So these are going to be two teams that are either going to cause a lot of turnovers, or we're just going to see a fast tempo game from both sides. And then these are teams that are going to force a lot of turnovers. FIU's 38th in turnovers forced, while FAU's 45th. So definitely something to keep an eye on. FIU turns the ball over a lot, just given their style of play. Something they definitely need to, sharpen up a little bit. And FAU's similar. I think a lot of it has to do with just a lot of new guys playing together, because FIU's case certainly is a little different. It's a lot of returners, while FAU is a completely brand new team, as we mentioned. So certainly will be interesting. FAU is still a really good team. I still think they're going to have probably the edge in this matchup, but they played a lot of close games, and who says FIU can't be another one of those close ones?
Yeah. Something I forgot to mention, Kevin, it's not, I guess, super related to the game, but there is something very cool about this matchup for FIU specifically. For the first time in program history, they're going to be rocking their Vice uniforms.
Yeah.
These are so clean, Kevin. I mean, they look good. You know what? I will admit, I wasn't completely on board the moment they were announced, but they have grown on me exponentially.
I love them. You should play the video. These are dope. Definitely dope. I can't. I haven't seen them in person. I'm excited to.
Yes.
And as you can see, the everything is viced out. And from what I understand, the game notes are also going to be Vice.
That's really good. By the way, shout out J-Rod getting his jersey retired at VCU.
Joey Rodriguez, baby.
He of course was part of that Final Four team, I believe, back in 2011. Here's the trailer. Let's take a listen.
Trip to LA, tryna hit that money, get it big. They think I'ma keep it players. Come through poppin', hell yeah. Over there with them, don't catch me there. I wouldn't drop that bag, cause I don't care. Yeah, I was taking trips to LA, tryna hit that money, get it big.
How about that, Kevin? I mean, FIU and Lamborghinis are becoming what FIU and
the Lambo will be there. The Lambo will be there.
Not on the court or anywhere inside. It's not like the football stadium where you just have it parked near the field. But okay, I feel that. They look great. Once again, another sports team adopting Vice. That's it's definitely cool that FIU is pretty much implementing every single sports team to have a Vice uniform set. And I'm
not
assuming,
every team, but
I'm about to say we're getting there. Which teams like baseball does not have one? Does softball have one? I'm not 100% sure. I know women's basketball has one. Swim and dive have Vice things. So does track and field, if I'm not mistaken. But eventually, I'm going to assume that every single sport at FIU will have a Vice alternate, because Vice has become synonymous with the FIU brand in the coolest way possible.
Yeah, I love it. And I mean, obviously it puts FIU on the map. And I think Scott Carr and, everyone at FIU Creative is doing an awesome job. Hunter, Christian, all of them. So definitely
when Hunter was on the pod, he said he was the one that came up with the idea of the Lamborghini and the initial Vice trailer that dropped a year ago. So I wonder who came up with the idea this time to ditch the, I believe it was an Aventador, now in exchange for a Urus, same color, that lovely Biscayne blue. So getting back on topic here, we were talking about FAU. By the way, the ESPN matchup predictor has an 81.5% chance in favor of FAU to win this game on the road. And I will say, Kevin, while it pains me to say this, we can't deny it. There's going to be a lot of FAU fans.
A lot of FAU media too. Our boy Robbie LaStella is going to be out there. A lot of people are going to be there too. Yeah, this is going to be a packed game, man. I'm excited. Not even if it's a loss. Now, remember the last time these two teams played here at Miami, it went into overtime. That was the year FAU made the Final Four. Had FIU beaten FAU, who knows where they would be?
Yeah, for sure, without a doubt, Kevin. And I'm excited. Just all things considered, I'm just super stoked about the matchup. I keep thinking about FAU's loss in double overtime to Charleston, like at the buzzer as well. Thinking that, man, what if something like that goes down here at FIU? Kevin, I'm just gonna say I don't think the court has ever been stormed at a game at the Ocean Bank Convocation Center. But if FIU beats FAU, I think it's deserving of a court storming for the Panthers.
Will that even happen? Like how?
I don't know. I don't know.
I feel like next year if FIU beats FAU at the Shula Bowl, then it'll be stormed.
Yeah, but I would like to, especially if it's like a buzzer.
Are there even court stormings in basketball?
They do. When like, first of all, there's been a lot of upsets already this season in college basketball, just in general. Teams like UConn.
I think it needs to be noted. Conference USA is one hell of a basketball league.
They're really good.
They may be multi-bid league.
I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that they will. And there's been a lot of upsets all around college basketball this season with teams like Gonzaga, UConn, Kentucky, all losing games. I mean, Miami lost to Drake. That was unexpected by a lot of people. Same thing with FAU. I think that because it's been a while. Okay, Kevin, can you fact check when was the last time FIU actually beat FAU in men's basketball? I don't
2020.
2020. It's been a hot minute. The FIU fans are yearning like us for a win over FAU because anytime you beat FAU in a sport, it's a good feeling. Am I right? So let's turn the ball over to someone that actually knows FAU very well. It is none other than Robbie LaStella. He is part of the FAU Owl's Nest. He does great work there. We had him on our show back on our Paws Up preview for the football game, and we once again got to see him at FAU's football stadium. He's a cool dude. He is obviously part of a great show there over at the FAU Owl's Nest. So let's hear from Robbie talk some Owls basketball right now. And how is it going, everybody? We hope you are enjoying our episode of the Paws Up preview so far. Now it is time to get into our opponent this week, the FAU Owls. And who better to talk about the Owls than someone we've already spoken to in the past? It's Robbie LaStella of the FAU Owl Chat podcast. We had him on when FIU took on FAU in football. Now we go from the gridiron to the hardwood. Robbie, welcome. How are you doing?
I'm good. It's a busy time over here at FAU, but you know what? We got a midweek basketball game. We don't give it a name in basketball, but it's a rivalry game nevertheless. Yeah. And, we'll see what goes on. I heard there's supposed to be a big fan a show out, so on CBS Sports too. So it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, a lot of excitement. FIU wise, you're bringing in the Vice jerseys worn for the first time in men's basketball, and yeah, opening up the second deck. So expect a lot of fans to pack the bank on both sides. Robbie, it's interesting, the situation with FAU in the Final Four a couple of years ago. We all watched it. You have a banner hanging at your barn. It's very interesting, I will say, but Dusty May, who led that squad, is out. He goes to Michigan in the Big Ten. Now you bring in John Jacobs in. What are your thoughts on the hire? What are your thoughts on him so far and how he's been able to lead the troops at FAU?
Yeah, it's been on the court success up and down so far, but overall I think it's still a really good hire. He's a young guy who youngish, but he's still wanting to make that ascend in coaching, and he wants to build something here at FAU and build off that success that they've previously had. And he attacked the portal really hard this offseason. He had to with the departures. And I think he did a pretty good job. He's very internationally tapped in. He had started as a coach overseas before moving back over here and then starting with Baylor, then Gonzaga, and then back to Baylor. So some of the recruits are international guys who he's got connections with. And then the others are, really talented transfers. You look at Baba Miller, who was at FSU, did a NBA draft stint, but mainly just to get his gauge. I don't really think he was going last year, but nevertheless, he's here. And then you got 3 guards who averaged double figures at their respective schools last year. Ken Evans from Jackson State, Leland Walker from Eastern Kentucky, and Kiki Tandy from Jacksonville State. So.
Yeah.
You guys might have saw him last year, I believe. So he's here. Leland and him and Ken in the starting lineup, along with Baba and Matas. And then off the bench, he's got Caleb Glenn, who was a top 50 transfer from Louisville, off the bench, and then Nico Moretti, who's a little spark plug point guard, can score and assist pretty well. So he did a good job building out this roster. He added some solid games to the schedule. That he did the best he could. It wasn't really all up to him. A lot of these games were decided before he got here, including this most recent 15-day road stretch, which was a lot. You're playing in 2 tournaments against some pretty solid teams: Liberty, Charleston, Okie State, Seton Hall, and then Drake. So that stretch was a lot. And then you started with UCF on the road a couple days before that. So that test was a lot, but he's got the solid. He understands the net and all that stuff to go in and building a schedule. So yeah, I like his mindset with everything. Obviously you want to see some of these close games turn into wins, but it's year 1. You can't ask for the sun, the moon, and the stars right away. You got to give them some time, and I think the fact that some of these games have been close, they're still scoring a lot, which is what he set out to do right away. He talked about the offense a lot and scoring and tempo, and he talked about the defense too. But you could tell the offense was the focus, and so the defensive struggles are definitely noted, and he talks about it a lot and having to adjust and. And so that's a good mindset to have, to identify struggles right away. And we'll see how this next couple of stretch of games go. It's an important one for FAU because we play FIU here, we play Jacksonville, and then Texas State, and then you have back-to-back games against Michigan State and Memphis. So it's time to figure everything out and fast. But overall, like the hire and like everything that's been brought in.
A nationally ranked Memphis team as well. The American is no joke when it comes to talent in men's basketball. I think you've already alluded to this a bit, Robbie, but a 2-4 record so far, including a 4-5 record up to this point. That includes that heartbreaker to Charleston that you talked about. But it also includes a clutch overtime win against Liberty, and then a win over Oklahoma State, which has former FIU player Arturo Dean in there as well. And then, lost to Drake, but I think Drake's been shocking everyone, also beating Miami as well. Drake's had an interesting year. But talk about your expectations heading into this season as far as the non-conference schedule and if they've been somewhat met, not really met, or in his first year, you think this team has overachieved given the pieces that they have?
Yeah, I definitely think the only real loss to me that's not a good one, and one you want to have back even in year 1 is I lost to FGCU. I respect Pat Chambers, and his game plan is what really helped them to that game. I mean, FGCU is a team, you guys saw them, they don't shoot a lot of threes, but in this game they did, and that's been FAU's weakness, is allowing open triples. And FAU had a 12-point lead at halftime in that game. They looked to have bounced back from their 3-point struggles that they had in the Shriners tournament. They were shooting 50% from the field at halftime, and then all of a sudden, in the second half, everything dipped. They were shooting 10% for most of the half, second half from 3, and 20% from the field. So when they were inconsistent, FGCU capitalized. And so, the games that like that where the offense has struggled, against Seton Hall, the offense has struggled. Those are the surprising ones to me, really, because the offense is, as was what's been talked about, what's been, the focal point of this team. And like I said, the defensive struggles have been expected a little bit. So overall, 4-5 so far is not too bad. I would have rather that been 5-4. But you know what? I mean, Dusty lost to Bryant and FGCU last year. So, nobody's perfect. And none of these games have been real stinker blowouts. They lost to Drake. It was not the closest game, but they still made it close in the second half. And so I like that from that perspective. Overall, I think it's a pretty solid non-conference schedule. Want to see them, go do well down this final stretch. Give Michigan State a run for their money. I mean, asking them to win that game is a lot, but can make it competitive. And then head into that Memphis game, which they won last year. Although that was a different Memphis team at home, though it'll still be at home. Penny doesn't like playing in Boca Raton. It's a small little arena. He doesn't like the noise. So we'll get ready for that game, and just get as much chemistry as you can through these next couple of games.
Yeah, I mean, whenever FAU plays Michigan State, regardless of sport, it seems it's going to be a close one that comes down to the wire. Talk a bit about Caleb Glenn and his importance to this FAU offense. 13.3 points per game, leads the squad. This is a unit that has the 34th best overall scoring offense in the country. Is also a very solid fast break offense. Talk a bit about what they do well and how much Glenn plays a part into that.
Yeah, so Caleb Glenn is definitely the spark plug off the bench. He's very versatile. He can come in and help out on the defensive end, but also really on the offensive end. Where he's been a big surprise is his three-point shooting. I don't know what it's at right now, but for a while he was in the 40s, 40%, and that was a surprise to Coach Jacobs. He's not necessarily a three-point specialist. He's more of a attack the rim and drive. So the added bonus of his three-point game has been pretty solid. And his aggressiveness to the hoop has been what it was as a high school recruit, and then last year at Louisville. He was a really top-rated player at a high school in Kentucky. Had a rough year last year, as did everyone at Louisville. And so needed a fresh start, and he's doing really well. In his first, he played a little bit last year, but didn't play a ton, and so now it's his first real role. So he's been a big factor off the bench, but really with this FAU team, it's everybody. They've got like seven, 8 guys who all contribute. And it's not going to be just the Caleb Glenn show. I mean, Caleb Glenn will come in off the bench and get his points, but it'll start, all 3 guards, Kiki Tandy, Leland Walker, Ken Evans. They're aggressive. I mean, anybody who, it's not just them 3 either. It'll be Matas, it'll be Baba. If they've got an open look, they're shooting it. It doesn't matter if it's 3 seconds into the shot clock. They want to get that ball down there, get an open look, and shoot. They're of the mindset that if they can, as many possessions, as many scoring chances they get, they'll make enough of them to win. That's the mindset. And, the past couple games hasn't been that way. They haven't made enough, especially in the second half against FGCU, the first half against Seton Hall. So, but that's going to be their offense. They're going to want to get, rebounds quickly, move it down the court, and find open looks. Doesn't matter who it is. They trust everybody. And it can be a different guy to do stuff every night. Nico Moretti's been another guy off the bench who's had big scoring nights, also had big assist nights. Lately it's been Kiki Tandy, Leland Walker in the starting lineup, doing solid things. Matas down in the paint, though, he gets his looks. They try to find him when he has matchup advantages. He gets in foul trouble on the defensive end a little bit, but when he's in and he's playing aggressive without fouling, he's a real force. And then Baba Miller, they look to him to kind of run the offense at times. They'll have him at the top of the key, running off screens, at the top of the key, off the screen, getting the open look from 3. He just went 5 of 6 from 3, which is insane to me. And so, they've got a lot of scoring opportunities, but, when the ball isn't falling, that's when, problems occur, as they did against Seton Hall and FGCU. So anything can happen if the shots aren't falling. So the big thing for Coach Jacobs so far has been trying to find consistency.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Baba Miller. He's part of the an FAU squad that I think has some pretty solid height. A lot of 6'11" players. You even dip into 7 foot with a few guys. Miller specifically leads the team in rebounds, 7.8 so far this season. Talk about him and FAU's defense as a whole. They forced the 45th most turnovers in the country. FAU, I think, is actually a bit in front of them, but still, talk a bit about this FAU defense.
Yeah, they play an aggressive trap-heavy zone a lot of the time. They'll switch in some man every now and then, but it's really a zone defense that looks to trap. They like to get double teams, and so that's what's forcing a lot of turnovers, because a lot of times, the pressure on the ball handlers does create turnovers. But other times, teams beat that And what's hurt FAU this year is when teams beat those traps and beat that pressure, and then they find guys who are, wide open in the corner for three. And that's hurt FAU a lot this year is open looks from guys just not switching fast enough, not rotating, not, overcommitting to a trap, stuff like that. That happens with a team who has a lot of new guys, and they've only played less than 10 games together. So it takes time for switches and everything, that goes into a defense to come together. But that's kind of what's led to the high steal and turnover percentage and to takeaway percentage. But, they're also allowing, I looked before, I don't remember exactly what it was, but a fairly not so good 3-point percentage to other teams in the country. So that's going to hurt FAU in any game. If FIU gets open looks from three and on the other end, FAU is not hitting their quick looks, it can open up the door for anything to happen. And so, that's what's been interesting about this FAU offense. It's fun. It scores a lot of points when it's working, but when it's not, it's led to some serious scoring droughts, multiple minutes in a lot of games this season where they go without points just when the shots aren't falling.
Yeah, without a doubt. We've talked about a few great parts about FAU that makes them a dangerous team, but talk a bit about some of the biggest shortcomings of the squad in general, what they've struggled with, and what's led to some of their losses so far this season.
Yeah, I think the two things are, as we mentioned, the scoring droughts when the shots aren't falling on the offensive end. They're going to be quick. Whether they're falling, whether they're not going to change their game plan. They're going to go down, look to find the quickest open shot possible and shoot it. And sometimes they're hitting and they come back, and then sometimes they're not and they're losing. So. And then on the defensive end, it's just the communication hasn't been 100% yet. And it's allowed a lot of open looks from three specifically. Teams have been hitting at a solid rate against them. And so, when the defensive intensity ramped up against FGCU at the end, it limited them severely. Their guards weren't able to do much. And so, they need that type of intensity kind of more often. Obviously, they're not going to full court press the entire game, but, when it was intense and the traps weren't allowing open looks, it was a tough defense to beat, but it's tough to ask for 100% of the time. So, the big thing is they need to start converting more offensively. Obviously, you can't ask for all the shots to fall, but with the amount that they shoot, they're trying to shoot 30, potentially 43s a game. They need, at least 40% of them to fall in if they're going to try to win these games. So it's not been too concerning just yet, but, want to see more consistency offensively and less open looks allowed on the defensive end.
Yeah, so Robbie, I'm not entirely sure if there even is a spread for this game as of yet. Oh, actually there is, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, FAU -8 and a hook. How about that? Like literally just this very minute. But I did want to ask you, now that we know that FAU is favored, as I was assuming, they have like the better matchup predictor against the Panthers. How do the Owls avoid the upset and disallow the Panther faithful to storm the court at the bank?
Well, definitely it'll start with on the offensive end, getting into a rhythm early. They did that against FGCU though, and then they still went out in the second half and there when they were ice cold. So if they are able to get a hot start, that's one thing, but to really seal the deal on the defensive end, they're gonna have to not allow open looks. And so, even against FGCU, a team that did not shoot a lot of threes coming into the game. I know FIU is not, the most gung-ho heavy team from three, but still, FGCU adjusted their game plan and it worked and they won. I know FIU's coach is watching the game, watching the film, and seeing that FGCU adjusted their defense or adjusted their offensive game plan and to hurt FAU's defensive weaknesses, and it worked. And when FAU shot fell off in that second half, FGCU's didn't, and they came back and won. So FAU just needs to continue, even if their shot does fall off in the second half, if they can ramp up the defensive intensity, not allow open looks, I think they can win this game. They have a little bit of a height advantage. They need to utilize that, though, too. They need to find the ball to Matas down low and not get him in foul trouble. And, I mean, Baba hit 5 out of 6 threes last game. That's not really his game plan. But if he's hitting 2 to 3, that's more than enough. So just get diverse scoring on one end consistently, and on the other end, limit open looks. I think they'll be all right, but we'll see it. Road game is never anything to look past too easily, especially if it's going to be one where a lot of fans are showing up. So
absolutely, you said it right there. Should be a very fun time at the bank regardless. Robbie, I get it. We're previewing a basketball game, but I'd be remiss to not ask your thoughts about Zach Kitley and the hire there at FAU football. What are your thoughts on him? Was he your number one guy, and the expectations for next season?
Yeah, definitely. I don't know. I mean, my personal number one guy, I didn't really have one, just because, this search is so, with Brian White, he really leaves every stone unturned. And so it's kind of tough to predict. Like, you could name a number one guy and be nowhere near it. So this hire definitely fits that mold. He's going to be the youngest FBS coach out there. I think it's exciting, to have an offense that potentially looks to score a lot of points. That's something that gets the fan base engaged. Hopefully, there's, sometimes a bit of a disconnect with the fans and FAU, especially over the last couple of years. The attendance just hasn't, been as good because the wins haven't been there. With an offense that's scoring a lot of points, I think, that'll do something to get the attendance, and then hopefully the wins come as well. And then they're starting to build something serious there. I think a young guy who's scoring a lot of points is something that can bridge a gap between, a fan base who sometimes won't attend the games and to a fan base that's wanting to come every week and see the Owls because they're scoring 30-something points a game. Now, he's a young guy with no Florida connections, so he's going to have to build a staff that helps him out in that department. FAU obviously has ran the Tri-County recruiting mantra the past couple of years. I don't think they're going to switch to be a Texas-heavy recruiting type school, even though he's born and raised Texas. Do they get a couple? Maybe, but I do think they find a defensive guy who's maybe a bit older, veteran style with Florida ties, and then build the staff around that. The good thing is from the last staff, even though the thing on the field, it didn't work out, they were recruiting really well, and a lot of the recruits seem to be happy with this offense, especially the receivers. Obviously, they want to come play in an air raid offense. So I'm excited. I want to see who gets hired on the staff, and then who's coming in through the portal. But, we'll see how it goes. I think it's interesting because the AAC will have a bunch of option teams, Rice potentially running an option now, and obviously the service academies and more coaches to come. There's still a bunch of openings. So I think this offense will be different from a lot of teams in the AAC, which could leave some surprises for sure.
We'll definitely have to bring you back on for interview number 3 before next season's Shula Bowl at Pitbull Stadium. Robbie, again, thank you so much. If you guys want to follow Robbie, it's at @LaStella Report on X, and be sure to also go and follow the FAU Owls Nest as well, see how they're handling this pretty big game between the Panthers and the Owls. Robbie, thanks again.
Yep, take care, guys.
All righty, so let's get back to the remainder of the Paws preview as Kevin and I go over around FIU athletics and game picks. All righty, that was Robbie LaStella. Be sure to give him a follow, as well as the FAU Owls Nest. They obviously do great coverage, and FAU basketball, it means a lot to them, especially as of recently having that beautiful Final Four banner up on their wall over there at the very small arena they have there at Boca.
We can't be talking.
I understand, but
theirs is probably definitely theirs is definitely better than ours.
What is that? 5,000 seats there at that joint. It's pretty cramped, especially for a team that obviously pulled off.
There's a new one though.
That is true. So, Artie, what are your final thoughts on this game, Kevin? Who are some players you really want to see pop off? What are your overall expectations for this game?
Yeah, it's a big game, as you mentioned. I think for FIU, definitely want to show up and show out on national TV. You just need your guys to perform. Deshaun Gittins needs to go off. He needs to have a big game And I want to see a little bit more from Sim. I think we need to see those big men really get it going a little bit. All of them, Ibo, Vianney, and OKK. So all three of them really need to get it going. That rotation has been not playing a little bit more. So I'm excited to see it. I'm excited to be there. I can't wait. I wish it was Wednesday already, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Because Wednesday's also National Signing Day for FIU football. So we have a very, very busy day for us, Jake. We'll be at FIU almost all day.
There was supposed to be a press conference, but now I don't know. We'll see.
I hope so. I hope there still is one.
It'll be interesting to see. Who knows, Kevin? By the time this was pre-recorded on the 2nd of December, if maybe by then we'll know who FIU's coach is in football. By the way, we know who FAU's coach is in football. It is who is it, Kevin?
Texas Tech offensive coordinator.
Ooh, they even dropped his contract, Kevin. It's a 5-year deal, $1.1 million per year, and then it goes up $100K every year afterwards. So by year 5,
the contract details. Wow.
So by year 5, it goes up to 1.5. So interesting contract there. Obviously, we're whoever becomes the head coach at FIU football, we're going to wish him the best of luck. Try to get some coverage with him. Obviously, go to his presser. But for now, it's time to fill the bank, fellas. Before we start to wrap up here, let's do a quick around FIU athletics just to make sure we're all dialed in here. FIU men's basketball, after they take on FAU, will go ahead and take on a very interesting opponent, Kevin. The new College of Florida, the mighty Banyans, as in the banyan tree. That's interesting. It's going to be on Friday, December the 6th at 7 o'clock at the Ocean Bank Convocation Center. It can be seen on ESPN Plus. After that, they go on a 2-game road trip taking on Stetson and East Carolina. FIU women's basketball, at the time of recording, has a 2-5 record. They're coming off a loss to Abilene Christian in the Thanksgiving Classic Championship. Now, their next opponent is going to be Yale, the alma mater of head coach Mike McDaniel of the Miami Dolphins, just saying. That's on Saturday, December the 7th at 1 o'clock. It's always interesting to take on an Ivy League team, I will say, over at the Ocean Bank Convocation Center. And then they'll head to UT Arlington on Monday before getting started with their Christmas Classic, another in-season tournament that they host here. And then last but not least, FIU Swim and Dive is still going on with their schedule with a 2-2 record at the moment. They finished with a second-place finish overall at the Purdue Invitational back on November 21st to the 23rd. Their next event that they will be part of is the CSCAA Open Water National Championships, hosted by FIU at the Biscayne Bay Aquatic Center on Sunday, December the 15th. They'll then host Marshall for a meet on Monday, December the 16th at 5 o'clock, also at Biscayne Bay. Now, that was your brief look at FIU, around FIU athletics. I think it's time we can wrap up and ask one more question here on the show. Who will win? Now, Kevin, I wish we had an EA Sports college basketball 25 game for me to do a sim with and see how they would predict this game. Sadly, that's not a game.
Fortunately not. Soon, hopefully.
Hopefully, so we can get all the college sports involved. But so I'll just ask you right now, Kevin, who is going to win this, FIU or FAU, and give us your MVP of the game.
It's always Paws up, but unfortunately, I'm going to have to go with FAU. I think FIU is going to keep it close, a lot closer than the experts think. I think it's going to be a very close first half. I think FAU is kind of going to not run away with it, but definitely going to take a lead that FIU just won't be able to dig out of. So we're going to go with Florida Atlantic beating the Panthers, I believe, for an 8th straight time. So not good.
Not good. You know what? Records don't mean anything here for our men's basketball predictions. I'm not tallying them like I did for football, but gosh dang it, FIU is due for a win so badly against this team. Here's my prediction. All right. Are you listening, Kevin?
I'm listening.
Jaden Brewer, triple-double as he leads the FIU Panthers to a win over FAU. The court will be stormed, and the Vice uniforms will be cemented as the greatest uniforms in college basketball history. And it can all be seen on a nationally televised station in CBS Sports Network.
I like it.
You got to stay positive here, you know? Should be a fun day overall. All right, Kevin. FIU versus FAU. Oh, it's so exciting. 6:30 p.m. tip-off, CBS Sports Network if you can't make it, but I implore you all watching this to pack the bank as Kevin mentioned, the second deck, which has not been opened, I think, in a hot minute, Kevin.
Since the last time these two teams faced off in 2022.
Going to be a lot of people there. I'm assuming there's probably, I think, yeah, there is a giveaway. I think it's a bucket hat. It's
bucket
a nice
hat.
bucket hat.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
definitely hop in for that. They're probably gonna have some more giveaways there as well, because when we went to the Florida National game, they had like tables of like wristbands and T-shirts. It should be a fun time overall. If you haven't made it to a basketball game yet this season, make it a priority to go to this one.
Definitely.
All right. We're not going to leave basketball, by the way. Episode 76 around the corner. By the time this drops, 75 will come the day after this game. 76 next week. We're going to keep it basketball related. Get a player from basketball on the show. Can't say who it is yet, but basketball coverage. It's hot. It's right here. And then come on. I already know Kevin's yearning for the spring semester so that we can get into baseball, because I know
baseball,
Kevin probably has some tricks up his sleeve for how he's going to cover FIU baseball.
Yeah.
We'll leave you there.
I'm pumped.
Pack the bank, go Panthers, and as always, Paws!
Let's go.